Welcome to the Minecraft Hall of Knowledge. Scott Wallace, TCED 6912, Youngstown State. So in this game, what we're going to do is we are going to use Minecraft to explore historic documents in an high school American history class. So we're going to do that by creating what we call the Hall of Knowledge, which is where we're going to store all of those primary source documents. All right, so our lesson focus is this, right? In American history, we go through a lot of documents, starting with the founding documents, working our way through, speeches and laws and things like that that occur over time. And so in this lesson, we want the kids to use their historical thinking skills that are also part of Unit 1 to begin to evaluate and apply the principles of those founding documents, all right? This lesson could be one of 8 lessons using Minecraft over the course of the year as we go from unit to unit. We could certainly extend this lesson and add other components and other documents from the rest of the school year into this lesson. The state content standards for Unit 1 include discussions about the Declaration of Independence, the Northwest Ordinance, the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, as well as the Bill of Rights. So that's what we're going to be focused on in Unit 1 of the Hall of Knowledge. So connecting this to students' prior learning. In their middle school years and even in their elementary school years, students have studied American colonial governments, and even in their 9th grade year, last year, 9th grade world history students learned about Enlightenment thinkers from France and Britain, people like Locke, Montesquieu, Rousseau, and the ideas that those Enlightenment thinkers brought forth. And then even in that class, as part of that class content and standards, there is a discussion about how those people influenced the American Revolution and the founding documents. So the students should be somewhat familiar with these ideas, even though that's at the beginning of their 9th grade year, and this unit would be the beginning of their 10th grade year. So there is a whole year between, these two similar things. So in order to inform our instruction, we do a pretest before each unit. And what we do is at our school, we use Ohio State test questions, the release questions, and those can all be found in the CRS systems, the centralized reporting system from the state testing website. So that's where we get those questions from. We administer our tests in that system. That way we can easily track the data from those tests that the students take. We follow that up, of course, with the post-test, but this is what's going to drive our instruction in this particular lesson. All right, our objective for the lesson is for students to explore what we're going to call a hall of knowledge, which is where all of the knowledge from our class, the sources, the documents are going to be kept, and to analyze those documents, but then to use those documents to complete a series of tasks using information found in the documents to complete tasks. Some of those may actually help the students defeat the British in the case of Unit 1, where we're trying to gain independence, and they're going to be fighting against zombies, which are going to represent the British redcoats here in the United States. Right? So that's the objective, is to use the information from the documents to answer questions and certain tasks so that they can continue to preserve the democracy of the United States. So there's some academic language objectives that go along with that. We want to analyze the documents, explore. We're going to do some summarizing key ideas from each document into a journal. I'll show you that in just a second, and explain their historical significance, right? So we always want to look at why these documents matter. That's a big component of what we're trying to do. So a big part of that is going to be using what is called the book and quill in Minecraft. Looks like this. So what you can do is, as a teacher, you can post questions in here that the students can then answer. The students can use this as like a virtual notebook, which is sort of one of the ways that we're going to use it. We're going to put some excerpts from our content in here, some excerpt from the primary sources in here, and then the students will have to answer questions about that. So that's going to be using the book and quill. It sort of ends up being like an interactive online notebook for the kids. We're also going to assess the kids by not just looking at what they're posting in their books that they're keeping, but also through reflection questions, and also using some teacher check-ins with virtual chats. I'll show you that in just a second. as well as at the end of the whole thing, we're going to do a virtual class discussion in Minecraft where the kids are all going to gather in the Hall of Knowledge itself. They'll bring all their characters into the Hall of Knowledge, and we'll have a discussion in there about what they have learned from this and the things they can take away from it. And then there's going to be a final exit ticket, of course, because we want to continue as teachers. We want to continue to improve the experience. So final exit ticket where they get to rate the experience, suggest some improvements, talk about the struggles they had, and things like that. That's going to help us with gameplay design in the future. All right. So one of the big things in our feedback is going to be during gameplay is to have a chat going on. So the teacher can chat with the students to check in with them. The students can ask any questions to me as they're going through it, as well as possibly even talking to each other, maybe even having them working in groups and teams so they can communicate through the chat feature. And that's going to be able to provide immediate feedback to the students as they work their way through these things. After the lesson, each student's going to answer some questions using their book and quill. So that's going to be an ongoing thing where I can assess and give them feedback based on what they're putting into their books, answering various questions and tasks. All right, now for the IEP students, Minecraft is actually great because there is text-to-speech options on there. There's also options where they can have read-alouds where things can be read aloud to them, which is fantastic. So it's going to meet the needs of a lot of our IEP students and our students that are a little bit struggling when it comes to reading. So this is all done in the accessibility settings on your gameplay if you're setting this up. All right, the procedure, I'll kind of go through this when I get into the actual video of what we created. But the basic thing that they're going to do is they're going to be traveling through this little world and learning from the documents that they come across in the Hall of Knowledge, and then using that to answer questions and to do certain tasks that are going to be created, right? So if you want to pause here and read this, feel free to do that. I'm going to move on to the next slide. All right, now what I'm really excited about is at the end is doing a virtual class discussion as a closure activity with the kids. I'm kind of looking forward to this, where they can discuss some of the key ideas that they came across, and they can begin to compare their ideas and what they saw, what they figured out, things like that, and doing some summarizing. I'm really big on summarizing these things with the kids, and that's going to be an excellent opportunity for feedback. And then, of course, again, with the exit ticket where they can share their experiences. So let's look at the game. I'm going to try to go through this really quick. Let's get into the world I created. And this is just sort of a basic setup. Eventually, it would be extended and made a lot nicer than what you're going to see here. But this is the basic version that I created. Now, I was using an Amazon tablet when I did this. This is why you see my fingers in the video. So this is the Hall of Knowledge that you're looking right here. This gray building. This is the Hall of Knowledge. I actually got my 11-year-old son to help me build this, and we kind of worked on it together because he was showing me how to put in different things. So he did most of the building, but I did some of the building just so I could get familiar with how it works. So this is what I told him. I said, I just wanted to kind of look like a museum with like some places where I can put these 4 books so that it looks like really fancy and official. And this is what he built. This is what he designed just based on those very simple instructions. So up at the top, you see the Hall of Knowledge sign. He made it look super nice. I love that he put this red carpet in here and made it look really nice and fancy. And you can see me accidentally tearing up the carpet because of the touchscreen controls right here. So this is a lecture, and this is where one of the books would be. So there are 4 major documents that we use in Unit 1. This is why he put the 4 lecterns in here, because we would put the book on there that has excerpts from each one of the primary source documents. So he put that on there. And this is where the kids would go and they would find those documents. They might have some questions where they have to do a summary or answer questions based on the information found in the documents, something like that. So you also notice in this room that there is a zombie walking around. So the zombie is, we haven't figured out how to change the appearance of the bad guys yet. But what we want to do is basically have the zombie representing the British. So we want to somehow put them in like red outfits like the Redcoats, where they are trying to attack you to stop the growth of our democracy. And then so part of the fun of the game for the kids would be to fight the zombies along the way. So here you see me. I'm going to try to beat up this zombie for a second to try to get him out of the Hall of Knowledge, because I don't want him destroying the Hall of Knowledge. All right, so remember, the Hall of Knowledge was built by an 11-year-old, and one of the things I want you to consider is the idea of using a student build team to build the world instead of it being teacher built, is to have the students invest in the game itself by having them build components of the game. For example, if you have 22 kids in your class, you got 8 units, you put 2 or 3 kids on the build team for each unit, and that's going to inspire some competition as the year goes on. Of every group is going to want to have a better build than the other teams. That's going to spark that competition. It also gets the kids more invested into the game and what's going on, and they're going to want to add challenges. They're going to want to add Easter eggs as well. So that's, I think, going to make for a much better game. And then, of course, the teacher, we can reuse these worlds that these kids create in subsequent years. So year 1 would kind of be the headache year in creating all of this. But by the time you get to year 2 and 3, you're just kind of making some edits and some improvements to what's going on, and life gets super easy at that point. So that was one thing that popped up a lot in discussion posts, was the idea of how time consuming it can be. But the kids build this a lot faster than we do. So that's something to consider, is to have it be student build with student build teams. So this is a fort that we built for the British, specifically for Unit 1 to use as a fort. But my son and I were talking about this, and one of the ideas that we have is you could build something like this. Let's say when you get to the Cold War and you're talking about McCarthyism and suspected communists, you could use something like this as a jail where you can somehow get the suspected communist spy zombies and put them in jail and have them detained. Or same thing if you're doing World War II, you can have Japanese Americans putting into an internment to replicate that as well. So there's a lot of options you have when you're doing that. So this space right here is where we were thinking we would build like a student village. This is where all the students would sort of be their origin point if we were doing this. And they can set up their own little houses, build a community over here, and then they would be that close to the Hall of Knowledge so that they could seek knowledge anytime they were trying to improve themselves and build our government. So one of the other things that I'm super excited about with this lesson is the closure for the lesson. So what we wanted to do is have a space that's big enough, and the reason we built it nice and spacious like this is we want a place where all the kids, because my biggest class is going to be 22 to 25 kids, where all the kids could bring their characters into this space all at one time, and then we could have a class discussion that way virtually, whether it be through chat or whether it be through actually talking out loud to each other. Either way, but we could have a sort of a gathering place, which is one of the tenets of American society is, the right to assemble. And so we want to sort of replicate that, especially since it's in our Constitution, which is one of our primary source documents, or excuse me, in our Bill of Rights, which is in the Constitution. So we thought that would be cool. And that is sort of the idea behind the game, is to sort of defeat the bad guys, continue to build democracy over the years, and hopefully extend this Hall of Knowledge. This would become, the basic gathering point in the building. But then over time, we might have our Unit 1 documents in a room over here, and they can keep adding on, to the Hall of Knowledge as we go throughout the year. So just a nice way to do it. That way it could be something immersive for the students. It's also something as they prepare for state testing at the end of the year, they could come back to the Hall of Knowledge virtually and continue to look at those documents. You could also use this if you're spiraling, you want to keep spiraling your contents throughout the year, where even when you're in Unit 6, if you want to spiral the kids back to something Unit 1, Unit 2, have them come back to the Hall of Knowledge, go back into, room number 2, and look at something from those documents. So they would have access to that through this game, where all the things you've covered through the years would be embedded in it and found in it, and you could use that as a great review tool. So I hope you enjoyed our video. I still got to put the YouTube link in here once I make post it to YouTube. But I thank you all for joining the presentation. I look forward to your constructive comments. And I hope everyone else has enjoyed putting this project together as well. Don't hesitate to get in touch with me and contact with me. And I hope you all have a great school year. Happy crafting.